Well, very glad to see you this morning. I'm glad to be here, and I'm thankful for the worship we've had and study we've had so far today. And it will, Lord willing, be especially busy day. We do have hopes tonight to meet again at 5 o'clock, and then this evening after service at Justin and Leanne's house, we hope to have a young people's class. Gable is in a meeting today, and so it will be my privilege to try to lead that study as we look at the idea, the concept of the fullness of time. Christ was sent into the world, the fullness of time, and look at that story. So that'll be our hope for tonight, if God wills. But at this hour, I wanted to spend a few minutes thinking with you about another lesson and a study we began. You know, the first of the year, beginning of a new year, and we're looking for what would be the most important thing that we could say with the prospects of a new year ahead and looking back on the year past. And I think we suggested that maybe the subject of wisdom might be as useful and good as anything that we could mention. And I do believe that to be true. I think the study of wisdom is absolutely important. We looked at a lesson last time from the first few verses of Proverbs chapter 1. And we invite you to turn to Proverbs. And we looked in that lesson about the profitability of wisdom. One way to put it, that wisdom is really useful. And there are a couple of words that are used here in the first couple of verses that Proverbs are given to us, verse 2 of chapter 1, to know wisdom and instruction and to perceive the words of understanding. We tried to say that wisdom, what it will do for us is it will not only help us see where we are, but where we're going, sight and foresight. There's so many people that live in the dark, and it's really useful to be able to have wisdom on our side and to grow in wisdom. And of course, the next expression is to perceive the words of understanding. That idea of perception we talked about, if you look at the word and define it, you find terms to help us with that word that involve perception. It's interesting how, even in a physical sense, two people can look at the same scene, but one sees more than the other. I hadn't spent a lot of time around policemen, detectives, but here are people who are well trained, you know, and maybe here I come along and I'm pretty naive about some things, and so we can both look at a situation, but the trained man, because of his training, he can see dangers that I didn't see. You know, the Lord could see the danger, the hook in the bait, as we say, when the devil came to tempt him. You think that's useful? You think that'll help you have a better life? I've heard this comparison made, and maybe it's not all bad. Imagine walking in a room that's just cluttered with all kinds of sharp, dangerous things. Can you imagine something like that? If there's furniture, every corner is razor sharp. Maybe knives, blades laying in the floor. If not, maybe just Lego. You ever stepped on Lego? Here's just a bunch of Legos laying out. And so you're trying to pick your way through and to keep from getting hurt. Now imagine trying to do that, this long room in the dark, pitch black dark. You ever been in a room that was absolutely dark? Somebody somehow talked me into caving when I was a young man, and once did me. I was through with that. I learned what pitch black really means. Well, that's the difference between the wise man and the fool. You know, there are people that walk through this world filled with dangers and they walk in the dark. And guess what? You get hurt. But wisdom is there to help us to avoid those problems, those difficulties. And so we look for the way of wisdom. I want this morning to spend a few minutes thinking with you about another aspect of wisdom as the Proverbs reveal it. And that is that wisdom is a choice. Wisdom is a choice. And I think that's a great encouragement. I may be here this morning and I may think that, well, I'm just not very wise. Well, you're not born wise. Who is? Well, there's somebody wiser. There's always somebody wiser. But the point is, I sort of have whatever IQ I have. I don't know that you can do much. I'm not aware of anything you can do to change that very much. I guess you can damage your brain and take it down. But I'm glad that God doesn't judge me on the basis of smarts in that sense. I don't have to be the smartest guy. A lot of folks are going to go to heaven that may have lower IQs than folks that don't. The point is, wisdom is not something innate. It's something acquired. It's a choice. And it's acquired based on choices. Let me go back to Proverbs 1. I've got on the screen a modern translation of Proverbs 1 and verse 4. From these, that is the Proverbs, an ordinary person can learn to be smart, and young people can gain knowledge and good sense. Let me pause there just a minute. I think that this lesson, I think the Proverbs are primarily written to young folks. I think all of us can profit. Even an old guy can profit from the Proverbs. But the point is, God pleads with us and says, look, I can help you avoid a lot of scars, a lot of heartaches, making a lot of regrets if you will let me teach you. And I can say no. But everybody loses when I do, including me. But wherever we are, the Proverbs can help me. If you are already wise, you will become even wiser. If you're smart, you will learn to understand proverbs and sayings, as well as words of wisdom and all kinds of riddles. He says, wherever you are on the spectrum, you may be just an ordinary guy. Well, let me tell you, the Proverbs can help you. You may be really smart. Okay, the Proverbs can help you. Wherever you are there's always room to grow, and it's possible to grow. And it's not like we can't find wisdom. It's there before us. There's a great image in Proverbs 1 and verse 20. I sort of like this illustration. Here's an ancient city with a bullhorn. That's sort of funny. But it makes the point, doesn't it? Wisdom calls aloud outside. She raises her voice in the open squares. She cries out in the chief concourses at the opening of the gates in the city. She speaks her words. What's she say? How long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn at my reproof. Surely I will pour out my spirit on you, and will make my words known to you. I had a fellow that I like, good guy. He one time asked me, he talked about the Proverbs, and he said, do you find it significant that when God pictures the idea of temptation, that he uses the guise of a woman? The evil woman? That is a motif in the Proverbs. But it's not the only motif in the Proverbs. There are also others who likewise are tempters, who are men. And by the way, when it comes to women, we find that women also personify wisdom. So I don't think there's anything misogynistic about that. It's an image, a powerful image of God calling to us through wisdom. And wisdom is pictured as this woman crying in the street. She's not up on a mountaintop daring you to come see her. She wants you to listen to her. I sort of think that's you and me today. I mean, I can sit here and just sort of let this go in one ear and out the other. I can preach this sermon and do the same thing. But we can't say that wisdom isn't calling to us. And who is she calling? There are all kinds of seekers, including the simple. They need wisdom. What is that idea? I don't know what your translation may say there, simple. It's a term that's defined as open-minded, seducible, gullible, naive. The idea of being open-minded doesn't sound all that bad until you couple it with those other words. And it pictures for us not just the idea of someone willing to listen, but somebody who is too easily led. They are not thoughtful. They go along with the group, and they don't consider enough the consequences. You've all heard this old saying. Somebody said, by all means be open-minded, but don't be so open-minded you let your brains fall out. Good point. You know, when I was a kid, I'd been 5 or 6 years old, my mother, very unusual, and father let me go off with a teenager that we knew, and we went to the Alabama State Fair. And that was my last fling with gambling, by the way, was that day. Yeah, I don't know if you guys, state fairs are not much of a thing anymore, but back in the day it was a big deal. They even gave you little tickets in elementary school, to have them get into the fair. And what the fair was a few rides, pretty shady, and a lot of bad food for you. And then they had these little booths. Come try to shoot the target. So throw a ring over something and you win something. Of course, it cost you. The one that I remember was put a quarter, that would have been a lot of money back then, on a color. I think I lost $5, everything I had that day. The teenager wasn't watching me. I went over there. Guy said, do it. I thought, okay. I'm used to adults telling me what's right. And I learned that day, gambling does not pay. So that was my last temptation with that. But maybe I could excuse myself as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old child. I'm an old man now. Why do I still get fooled by things I ought to know about? I'm not wise like I need to be. That's the point. It's a great story. We'll not have time to develop it, but you remember that story told in 1 Kings chapter 13? When Jeroboam had just insulted God, God sent a prophet up there to cry out against that altar. He was a courageous man and he did what God told him. But God also told him this: I want you to come back, don't you eat with anybody while you're there, and don't come back the same way that you went. And you remember that story. And there was a prophet in the area that admired, he didn't have the same courage, but he admired his courage. And so he sent a message and said, oh, you need to come back and eat with me. He said, I can't do it. The prophet said, God told me specifically not to eat with anybody here. He said, well, God also talked to me, and he said, it's okay. When you say it that way, it doesn't sound very impressive, does it? So what does he do? He goes back with him. And that's when God told him, you're not going to make it home. People said, I wonder why he didn't strike that other fellow down. God, I'm sure, will deal with him in his way. But he dealt specifically with this man, his messenger that he had sent. I used to wonder about that story, and then after you read it a few times, you begin to realize, God hand-selected this fellow and told him face to face, as it were, directly, here is what I want you to do, and then you just let somebody come along and tell you, no, don't worry about that. And you believe it? Oh, he held him accountable for that. He's going to hold me accountable for that. And so that's the naivety we're talking about. It's not a virtue to be naive. It's a curse. It's a problem. And wisdom will help us with that. So it'll help the simple. It'll also help the fool. I think you have a descending order of problems here. Naivety is a problem. But worse than being naive, I think, is being a fool. One definer that I looked at said, kasel, I don't know anything about Hebrew, but it means fat and stupid. I thought, well, that's getting personal. But he's not talking about physically, is he? He's talking about spiritually. Heart covered over, hard to penetrate. Not by nature, but by choice. Such a person may be quite perceptive in other areas, but not spiritually. I believe that's right. There are a lot of folks who are smart in a lot of ways, but they're not wise. They're foolish spiritually in ways that really count. Not aware, not serious, not sensitive to things that are truly important. Wilson, in his word studies, ties it with the idea of ungodliness. We've looked at that word many times. What does it mean to be ungodly? What does it mean to be godly? A godly man is a man who is sensitive to God's will. He's always looking to God for direction. He's always looking up and trying to find the right way. The ungodly man, he may not be grossly immoral. He's just going through life and he has not one thought. What's you going to do with your life? What I want to. Where are you going to work? Wherever they pay more. Who are you going to marry? Whoever's pretty. That's ungodliness in a nutshell. And if you live making decisions that way, then I'm this man. I'm the fool. I don't have to stay that way, but that's where I've been. I've been letting the devil pull the wool over my eyes all these years and ignoring God's will. So it's not a matter of intelligence. It's a question of decisions and the choices that we make. Look at how the Scriptures use this word. Proverbs, again, 17:24. Wisdom is directly in front of an understanding person. But the eyes of a fool, same word, are looking around all over the world. Let me tell you, I can look everywhere for answers and everywhere for information except God. That's a textbook case of foolishness. Had nothing to do with how much money I got, or how smart I am, how educated I am or not. It's folly. It's a lack of focus. It's a lack of priorities. I think about Proverbs 18, another place in the Proverbs where this word is used. 18:2, a fool does not find joy in understanding, but only in expressing his own opinion. You've heard that old saying, somebody tells you, you can't tell me, you're in a discussion with him, you can't tell me. Wise fellow once said, if a man ever tells you, you can't tell me, believe him. He's telling the truth. You can't tell him anything. Maybe the Lord couldn't tell him anything. There's a mode in which we just shut off reason and we just say, I believe this and I don't want to hear anything else. Okay. But I don't believe that ever is on the side of wisdom. I think that's representative of folly. There's one more thing that's mentioned here in Proverbs 1 and our text there. And it's the idea of the scorner. There's hope. That's the point. There's hope for the simple, for the naive. There's hope for the fool who is very careless and reckless. There's even hope for, I think, the third and worst category in this list. The scorner, lutz, is the word. Strong's has this great definition that I always think about when I find this word. He says it's to make mouths at. Does that bring an image to you? Somebody who's mocking, someone else who's speaking. There's a level of contempt in this word. It's not just an innocent who's foolish or even someone who's reckless. This is someone who is a determined enemy of goodness. Someone who mocks and shows disrespect and disregard for what's right. It is in that sense the lowest level. Over in Proverbs chapter 9, look with me at verse 7. There's a warning here. He that reproveth a scorner getteth to himself shame, and he that rebuketh a wicked man gets himself a blot. Reprove not a scorner, lest he hate thee. Rebuke a wise man, and he'll love you. Give instruction to a wise man, he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. There's some people that in trying to correct them, you're just going to get a black eye, either literally or figuratively. It does no good because of their mindset. Proverbs 13 and verse 1. A wise son heareth his father's instruction, but a scorner hears not rebuke. There's a danger there. We don't have to stay in that mode, but when we find ourselves mocking those who are trying to help us and turning a deaf ear to those who are certainly closer to God than we are, then we are in extremely dangerous territory. But even here, there is the hope of something better. In Proverbs 1 and verse 23, going back to our text here, how long, ye simple ones, will you love simplicity? Scorners delight in scorning, fools hate knowledge. Look at verse 23. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I'll pour out my spirit unto you and make known my words to you. If I find myself in a place where I am just ashamed and disgusted with myself at the decisions that I've made, that's the first step toward getting right. As long as I'm justifying it, I'm pretty well in a bad spot. I don't know if they can reach me there. But if I will ever allow myself to say, I should have done it differently, there's hope. There's hope. We can turn to God. God is merciful. Proverbs 30 deserves more time, and we don't have time. But Proverbs, we think of Proverbs as being largely the work of Solomon, and I believe that's right. But we have some other authors, and one of them is a fellow named Agur, and Proverbs 30 seems to be taken up with his words. The words of Agur, the son of Jacob, even the prophecy, the man spake unto Ithiel, even to Ithiel and Ukal. Surely I am more brutish than any man, and have not the understanding of a man. Neither have I learned wisdom, nor have I the knowledge of the holy. I do appreciate him, because I so relate to that sometimes. You feel like, well, I must be the dumbest fellow that ever walked the earth. I've made so many mistakes. But he goes on. He doesn't leave it there in despair. Who hath ascended up into heaven, or descended? Who hath gathered the wind in his fist? Who hath bound the waters in a garment? Who hath established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, or what is his son's name, if thou canst tell? What he's saying, I think, is ultimately, no man knows the answers. But there is one who made all things. And that's the one that we seek help from. Every word, verse 5, every word of God is pure. He is a shield unto them that put their trust in him. Add not unto his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou be found a liar. And so it is. And even in times of despair, times of prosperity, the next couple, 3 verses there, what we need to do is hold on to God. My point here is simply this: there's hope. There's hope. No matter how many mistakes we've made, no matter how many things we regret, here's the good news. God gave us today to make a difference. A lot of folks don't have today. There's some people whose book was closed yesterday or last night or this morning. But here I am, and here you are. And wisdom cries out again and says, listen to me. Listen to me. Matthew chapter 27 is an example of, on the thief on the cross, as it were. Both thieves cursed Jesus, but one of them thought better, as it turned out. But both of them started out in a bad spot. They didn't have to stay there. Saul of Tarsus in Acts chapter 9 did horrible things. But that's not the end of his story. Even Nathanael, I wouldn't put him in the category maybe in some ways of those others, but when he heard about Jesus, he asked the question, can any good thing come out of Nazareth? But he wound up being a follower of Jesus. There's hope for me and for you, no matter where we are on that spectrum. But here's one other point I'll make before we close this morning. Don't wait too late. There is a too late. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to be real with all of us. The Proverbs are real about that. Proverbs 1 and verse 24. Here's wisdom again personified, speaking, calling, and then warning. Because I have called and ye refused. I have stretched out my hand and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear comes. When your fear comes as desolation, and your destruction comes as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish come upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. And they will seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would none of my counsel. They despised all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. When I first started trying to read the Proverbs years ago, this passage sort of puzzled me a little bit. Is God mocking us? No, I don't believe so. I don't think this is the Lord per se, but wisdom personified. And I don't think the passage is there to say, well, if you mess up, you can't ever make it up. Your only hope is just don't ever make a mistake. We know that's not so. That's not the message of Proverbs. So what is he saying? What do you understand what he's saying? Wisdom is speaking to us and saying, look, I can save you a lot of trouble. But after you run through every stop sign and have the wreck, your car is still going to be broken. Doesn't mean we can't be forgiven. Doesn't mean we can't learn from that. Doesn't mean we can't do better in the future. It just means there's some consequences that come as a result of ignoring wisdom. And by the way, every adult in this room on some level has faced that. I say that. I don't know everybody's story. I can promise you there are things, if I had been wiser, that I could have avoided. We all have to live with that and process that and learn from that. This is not a message of discouragement. It is a message of warning. I can save you a lot of heartache, but if you insist on the heartache, you're going to have it. It's a little bit like, there's an old saying, we can choose the road we take, but we can't choose where the road goes. Our choice is on the road we take. If a man runs through every sign that says bridge out and then runs through the barrier, he's going in the lake or off the cliff or wherever he's going. We don't have to do that. If I've made the mistakes in the past, God forgive me, help me. I don't have to make them again in the future. That's the point. Wisdom calls to us while we can still avoid heartaches, new heartaches. But have no doubt about this fact. Everyone will reap what he sows. Isn't that what the prophet taught us? Isn't that what the inspired man in Galatians taught us? Whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. Or as Hosea put it, those that sown to the wind shall reap the whirlwind. So, I'd like to share another lesson with you from the Proverbs talking about the very practical use of this knowledge. Because I want to tell you what the Proverbs are talking about deal with everyday life and the situations that everyday life brings. But I won't just in today's lesson. I hope this lesson has been a combination of a sober warning and also a word of encouragement. Every one of us in this room can be wiser this year than we were last year, wherever you are on that spectrum. And every one of us, whatever mistakes we've made in the past that we've been hit in the head with and we have to deal with, but we don't have to make other ones this year. If God gives us this year, we can be wiser. We can make better choices. And the Lord wants to help us with that. And as it were, wisdom is just in the street crying out for us to come and follow. Just don't be stubborn. That's what the Lord says to me. Don't be stubborn. Come to me. Learn from me. And I believe if we do that, we will be blessed. We'll be glad. I appreciate your kind attention to this lesson. It's a lesson that I need as much as anybody, and I thank you for your kind attention. Okay, please, if you use a songbook, get the songbook out and turn to the number that's been selected. If you're here this morning and you've not yet obeyed the gospel, there's power in the blood, and that's really where it starts. You can't serve God outside of Christ, and we're baptized into Christ. So based on faith and a penitent spirit, we come, we begin our journey, we're baptized into Christ, and then we hold His hand every day looking to fight the fight in a way that pleases Him. But He'll help us there. Maybe we're those who started that journey, but we've lost our way, and we need to make correction. Make it. Maybe we need to make some public correction. Make it today. We'd be glad to help you, assist you. And if we can, please let us know how right now while we stand, while we sing.
Would to be free from